and welcome. My name is Minister Larry Addison, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to partake in the Lord's Word with me. Sometimes when I'm driving down the street, I just think just suddenly, a lot of times it happens when I'm driving through an intersection and I'm looking left and right and this way or that way just to see if there's a person that's going to possibly run a red light, or if there's a pedestrian crossing the street, just looking just to be aware. But, and ironically, this just happened to me earlier today. I'm driving and I kind of thought about what would happen if someone, just came out of nowhere and went through the light and just hit my car. I don't know why I thought like that, but it just crossed my mind. But as I thought about that, I began to thank the Lord, I began to just praise Him because, I realized that any given moment, our lives could change forever. I used to thank God for each day. Now I find myself thanking God for each minute. Because reality is, from this minute, 1 minute to the next, our lives can change. Anything can happen. And we ought to really just be thankful because the Lord is watching over us. He's constantly taking care of us and just being so faithful in our lives. I don't try to harp over what could happen or how things could be, but for me, I just kind of remind myself that you are blessed. A lot of times when we're going through tough circumstances, when we're going through some difficult times, we kind of forget, how fortunate we are. We kind of forget how blessed we are sometimes, and I just think, as a friendly reminder, we must just look around and realize, when I say look around, I don't mean just look around and look at the material things. Look around and just understand that, we have good health. We're in our right minds. Things that are very important to have. The use of the various faculties in your body. I just think it's very important to just realize that we are truly blessed. And we are in good care, with the Lord. Today I want to talk to you, and I want to reference the book of Lamentations, chapter 3, specifically verses 21 through 26. And this is one of my favorite passages here, something that I kind of think about all the time. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. So I know there's a lot of controversy on who actually wrote this lament. Some theologians believe it was Jeremiah and some believe it wasn't him. But, today I just want to reference or refer to Jeremiah as the author of this. So it starts off, verse 21. He says, "This I recall to my mind. Therefore have I hope." Don't forget that. Hope. "It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore will I hope in Him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for Him, to the soul that seeketh Him. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. My hope is in Him." When I think about where I could be or things that I've been through, things that should have taken me out of here, and how I have to deal with what I have to deal with now and endure certain things. My hope is in the Lord. Early in this chapter, Jeremiah talks about his affliction. But as we read here, he switches from despair to hope. And now there's no need to deny the terrible consequences that he had to face at that time in Jerusalem. There's no need to deny the exile, in Babylon that was taking place at that time. But we also must remember that God redeemed Israel before. Before all of this took place, he redeemed Israel from terrible situations before in the past. And this gave Jeremiah hope that God would do the same thing again. He would indeed redeem Israel once again. So as I read this, I'm inclined to just think, how often, or ask, how often do we reflect on what God has done for us? How often do we reflect on what God has done for us? Things that he's done before. And how do we allow that thought process to encourage us in what we're dealing with right now? When I think about what the Lord has done for me, I can't help but be encouraged. I can't help but to be encouraged through what I'm going through right now. Instead of me being discouraged, I'm encouraged because I know what he's capable of. I know what he's done for me in the past, and I can't help but feel that somehow, some way, he's going to deliver me through whatever it is that I'm facing right now. And, it is because of God's loving kindness that we are not consumed. It's not because we're so careful or we don't go here or we don't do this or that we're not consumed. It's because of the Lord's mercies. And his mercies only is what keeps us from being consumed. And it's all because his compassions fail not. Jeremiah's faith is that God's love never ceases and his mercies never end. They are renewed every single morning. So what happens? If his faithfulness is renewed every morning, then that means it stays fresh. It's fresh every single morning. And since that is true, Jeremiah understands that Israel has nothing to fear. He understood that Israel had nothing to fear because he knows that the Lord's mercies are new every single morning. And, its present circumstances may be terrible. It may be something that's very grim. That's all true. But one thing that's also true is that its future is assured. God and Israel are, in this passage here, God and Israel had a bond. They had a bond, a tight bond in a covenant relationship. And at that time, Israel could trust God to be true to that relationship. Don't you know that because of Jesus Christ, we have a covenant with God? This pandemic, everything that we're going through, our present circumstances may be terrible. They may be terrible. They may be difficult to handle, but we have assurance that God will bring us through this. We have that assurance, and just like Jeremiah had the assurance that God will bring Israel through the circumstances that they had to deal with, through the exile and everything that they had to deal with, we have the same assurance that God will bring us through, because great is thy faithfulness. But do we truly understand just how faithful the Lord is? Do we truly understand that? I mean, when I think about friends that I've had in the past, people that were in my life, in and out of my life, and I think about the faithfulness, that people, the consistency of people being there for me. When I think about that, I mean, it went to a certain point, and then it fell off. It may have went to a certain point, then it stopped because something may have happened. But what I love about the Lord is that when I'm up, He's faithful. When I'm down, He's faithful. When I'm on the right path, He's faithful. When I'm trying to find my way, He's faithful. When I'm not the best that I can be, He remains faithful. When I'm struggling, when I'm trying to just find out what it is He wants me to do, He is faithful. No matter what we go through in our lives, how hard it is, the Lord remains faithful. Great is thy faithfulness. And I just believe that we really need to understand how faithful the Lord is in our lives before we start thinking one way or another based off of how we feel about what we're dealing with. We really need to focus on how faithful the Lord is in our lives. He said in verse 24, God is my portion. God is my portion. He said, the Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Jeremiah saw God as his portion. He saw God as his means of sustaining life. He saw him as his spiritual heritage. And that far outweighs his physical heritage, and all the physical things that he had at that time. Knowing that the Lord was his portion outweighed those things. Do we see God as our portion today? More importantly, do we view God as our lifeline? The Lord sustains me each and every day. I know in my heart, I know from experience, I know currently that it is because of the Lord's mercies that I am not consumed. There's so many ways for us to leave this earth. All you have to do is turn on the news and you'll find about 10 or 20 this evening. So many ways for us to leave this earth, but it's because of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed. He's my lifeline. I'm speaking for myself right now. The Lord is my lifeline. I can't function without Him. I can't deal with people without Him. I can't deal with myself without Him. I can't face any circumstance, any situation without Him. He is my lifeline. And I am so glad that He is my lifeline. I am so glad that my life isn't dependent on how I think or how I feel. I'm so glad that He's the author and the finisher of my faith. In verse 25 it says, the Lord is good to those who wait for Him, to the soul that seeks Him. The one who is truly dependent on God for his or her portion, they're truly blessed. That is a blessed person, the one who is truly dependent on the Lord for his or her portion. His compassion is just, it can't fail. It doesn't fail and it cannot fail. And His faithfulness is indeed great. So, those who wait for the Lord can expect that the Lord will show them love, mercy, and favor. Now I know we hear a lot about waiting for the Lord, a lot about waiting, period, when we read the scriptures. We hear a lot about that, or we read a lot about that. You know, throughout the scriptures, we can find emphasis on waiting for the Lord in Genesis chapter 49, verse 18, Psalms 37, verse 9, Hosea chapter 12, verse 6, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8, so on and so forth. Various scriptures. I can't call them all out, but it's various scriptures we can reference waiting for the Lord. But to wait for the Lord is to live in faith. We literally have to have faith in order to wait for God. We have to live in the expectation that God's compassion doesn't fail. We expect God not to fail. When we're going through our situations, when we're dealing with life, we expect God not to fail. We may expect other people to fail. We may expect other people to let us down, but not God. His compassion does not fail. His mercies, thank you, Jesus, never come to an end. It's not like today his mercies are enduring in my life, but then tomorrow they're not. They're new every morning. Every morning, fresh, waiting for us. As soon as we wake up, already been established, already laid out the path for us each day. To wait for the Lord is to live in the certainty that the Lord has the power. He has the power and the will to bless those who are faithful. Now, we as we wait and as we're faithful, he's doing something for us. We're not just waiting. We're not just sitting around waiting. The Lord he's blessing us. He's restoring us. He's giving us everything that we need to keep moving forward, to keep carrying on, to keep toiling. He's given us those things every single morning. You know, to wait for the Lord is to see beyond our present circumstances. It's hard sometimes to just act as if you're oblivious to what's going on around you. It's difficult. But being in the Lord and waiting for the Lord and having faith in the Lord, we have to be able to see past our circumstances. See, our circumstances can't be the end all be all. We can't look at our circumstances and then don't see what's beyond those circumstances. As if that's it. As if now because I'm dealing with this, my life is over. Now because I'm dealing with this, I can't move past that. I can't do anything other than that. I can't think about anything other than that. No. We have to see past our circumstances. Having the faith that God is going to bring us through our circumstances. He didn't bring us to the circumstance to not be able to bring us through those circumstances. But we have to be able to see past those. You know, in Jeremiah's time, his circumstance in here at this time was the exile. In his case, it was the exile. But he knew that the Lord was going to restore Israel. We know that the Lord is going to restore us. We know that the Lord is going to take good care of us just like he's always done. We know that. But we have to look beyond our circumstances. We have to understand and remind ourselves that his mercies are new every morning. We have to remind ourselves that he is faithful. And as far as I'm concerned, the Lord is the only one that's faithful. We're faithful when we want to be, but he remains faithful. He's consistent. He's consistent in our lives. You know, if we're waiting quietly, you know, it says in verse 26, it is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait. And I'm looking at this like quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. So I thought, well, if we're waiting quietly, I guess that means that we shouldn't be complaining. I guess that means that we shouldn't be moaning and groaning about how hard things are, how tough things are right now. If we're waiting quietly, when I thought about this, I thought about if we're waiting quietly and we're not complaining, moaning and groaning, then I guess that means that we should have some patience. I guess we need to have some, that's what I took from this. We should have some patience as well while we're waiting. But the main objective today is that our hope is in the Lord. Everything that we hope for, we hope that things get better. We hope that this doesn't happen. We hope that we make it through. We hope that our future looks this way or that way. We hope that our next minute is a minute that we have breath in our lungs, air in our lungs. That hope is in God, not in man, not in machines, not in the vaccine, but in God. So I just want to encourage someone today. Have hope in the Lord. Continue to have hope in Him and not in anything else and not in anyone else. And I also want to encourage someone to just have it come to your mind. Like, I love what Jeremiah said. This I recall to my mind. Therefore, have I hope. Because I can recall a time when the Lord did something in my life. Because I can recall a time when I was down and He picked me up and brushed me off and took me out of that situation. Took me through that situation without even smelling like the smoke from the fire that I've been through. When I can recall those things, I have hope in Him. So be encouraged. Keep trusting, keep believing, and keep every single ounce of hope in the Lord, because He is faithful and great is thy faithfulness. Thank you. I'll see you next time. In the interim, be blessed.